Welcome back to another episode of Supergene Unleashed. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Margot Visser to the show. Margot and I met when she was living in Dubai out at a ladies' night, which was quite funny. And ironically, our paths probably should have crossed a lot sooner and in a more formal setting because we actually come from the same industry. Now living in the Netherlands, Margot is a fellow female entrepreneur and owner of Stories by M. I absolutely love her tagline on LinkedIn, which says, helping ambitious female founders build unapologetic personal brands that fit like their favorite jeans and attract dream clients on repeat. Wow, what a killer intro. I'm honestly sat here pregnant trying to remember what even wearing my favorite pair of jeans feels like, because I really do love that correlation, because once you find your perfect fit, I think it gives you a cool, confident vibe, that understated attraction, which I'm sure is ultimately what helps her bring her clients in and also attract the right clients. So today I want to share Margot's story because she has had quite a transformation journey, and I feel inspired by her journey with the way she found herself and unlocked her true potential in her 40s. So Margot, welcome to the show. And if you can please tell us a little bit about yourself and where did you start?
Thank you, Stacy. That was quite an introduction and you're making me blush. And I love that you love my tagline. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure that one out. Well, hi, my name is Margot. I am 45 years old and I currently live in the Netherlands after having lived quite some places in the world. I am an entrepreneur and I work with women only, and I help them build personal brands that they really feel confident in, because I truly believe when you feel and embody who you are and what you stand for, you present yourself in a different energy, and that's really where the magic happens. But before I got to where I am today, I think I was on a path of doing everything right. So,
but what do you mean by doing everything right?
I followed the path my parents had set out for me. I come from a small town in the south of the Netherlands.
Okay.
And my parents wanted nothing more for me than to get a university degree, find a good job, find a husband, buy a house, get a mortgage. And that was pretty much their, let's say, idea of success.
And so, sorry, did they tell you that, or was this implied as you grew up?
Both. I mean,
okay.
They would say, get a degree. It will help you on your way in life. But also, they were strong believers in you find a life partner, you stick with them no matter what, you buy a house and get a mortgage. Those were the things that were said on repeat, but implied as well. So that's what I set out to do and did. That's how I really started life.
And what did you decide to study then? Was there any pressure on what type of degree you needed to pursue?
Yeah, funny you ask, because I have always been a creative soul. So from as young as I can remember, as early back as the memories go, I would be drawing, I would design clothes for my Barbies.
Wow. I actually used to do similar things. I used to actually cut the hair of my Barbies.
Oh, yes, so did I. And so when I had to choose a university to go to, I initially went and checked out one of the art schools in the Netherlands. And I remember going there and checking it out and, in order to decide whether that was the right direction for me or not. And my mom came with me. So they were open to me exploring it. But while we were there, I remember feeling so like the odd one out. Like, there were really artistic, creative people, and coming from a small town, I felt weird. I was young. I was 17.
Okay.
I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so my mom basically said, maybe you should choose something, a bit broader, maybe something that'll give you a better guarantee in, next steps in your career. And so I ended up actually deciding to not follow through on the art path and decided to do a degree in business administration instead, which was like a 180 from what I wanted to do.
That is quite a 180. I mean, to be honest, though, when I first went to college, I wanted to be a meteorologist.
Oh, wow.
So I studied atmospheric science, and I quickly realized that was not what I wanted to do. I hated the math part, and then I switched to communication, which was also a broad degree. So basically, fast forward us, you got your degree, you're on this path that your parents are putting you on. What happens next? Where did you go from there?
So I met a guy when I was quite young, 19. And we were together for 13 years. We ended up getting married, and he was the one that got offered a job in Dubai. And so we moved in 2007. We moved to Dubai, and then after 3 years of being there together, we separated. And that's really when I always say that's when the second part of my life started, because all of a sudden I was 31. I thought I had life all figured out, and there I was. On my own.
In a foreign country, no less. Yeah.
And so my parents were like convinced I was going to come home and I was going to stay with them while I figured out my next steps. But I felt very strongly that I had a chance at reinventing myself. And so I decided to stay. I had a great job. I built a really nice network of people around me. And so I was like, if there's anywhere I can, figure out who I am and what I want to do with life, this is it, because I'm so far away from everything I've ever known. It doesn't matter what I do because no one's going to judge me, because this is for me. So I did. And I ended up spending another 10 years on my own while I really started the first sort of transitional phase of really trying to figure out, because until that point I had either had my parents to tell me or imply what they wanted me to do. And then I got married, and I'd never even lived on my own before. So
wow.
I had zero, let's say, knowledge of who I was and what I wanted in life. So it was a great opportunity to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you needed the carpet pulled beneath your feet in order to have that independence. And I think it's a really pivotal age, at 31. I mean, there's a lot of different life stages, I think, as you become an adult. And I can definitely remember the first time that I lived on my own, a bit of a scary feeling. It was like the shelter and the comfort of a safety net, if you will, is a bit gone. But I also think it's important in terms of self-discovery and understanding who you want to be. Yeah. And when you're sometimes in a relationship, especially at such a young age, I mean, 19 is incredibly young, in my opinion.
Exactly. What do you know? What do you know about yourself and of the world?
Exactly. And it's almost like you grow and shape yourself according to that other person, rather than knowing who you are before you enter the relationship. So that's really bold that you decided to stay, especially that you had only been here 3 years. You had your partner in crime, if you will, to kind of navigate this new environment, being in a culturally different place. I mean, from the Netherlands to the Middle East, it's definitely was a big culture change, I'm sure. And, having to figure things out. And for the people that might be tuning in that don't know, it's actually quite hard to live in Dubai, and because you are sponsored by your employer. So as well, to be single and on your own, and knowing that you have to for sure have a job to stay here. So I assume that because your career was going so well at that point in time, you had the confidence to stay.
Yeah. And the smart thing I did was I don't know why, but I must have felt or known somewhere that I never got on my husband's visa. So I always had my own visa, and I always had a job. That was key for me. I wanted my independence that way.
That's really mature of you, because again, just in my experience, I find a lot of women are looking for the man to carry that load, and this is just an important showcase that no matter what, it's you taking care of you. And
Yeah.
it's really nice that you had the foresight to think about that and have your own money, because imagine if you had not, you would be a little bit at his mercy, you know?
The first couple of years after our separation were hard financially because all of a sudden I had to pay for everything on my own. I had to obviously organize stuff, move out, find a place to live. So, but I so strongly felt that that's what I wanted. I wanted to stay. And so I think it's also addictive when you start feeling that, yeah, you have control over your life, you get to decide, and every decision that you make gets you closer to where you want to go. So
right.
I ended up working my way up the ladder, the corporate ladder, and, increased my income. And so life became easier and easier and actually better and better, really good. So yeah, it was a great reward. And I think that that's what initiated the whole. When we moved to Dubai is a place that moves so quickly, and it's contagious. So I started changing and developing and noticing that, hey, I have a voice, I have an opinion, I can do things on my own. And so we ended up just, I guess, growing apart because he wasn't changing as quickly as I was. So
that makes sense. And that can definitely happen when you change an environment. Who you were maybe doesn't fit that environment. So jumping a little bit forward, obviously that was a pivotal moment in your life. You chose to stay in Dubai. What happened towards the end of your stay in Dubai?
Well, I guess you could say that life caught up with me. Life in Dubai caught up with me. My life has always been sort of a go with the flow kind of situation. So things would happen to me. I'm naturally a very relaxed person. And so I didn't really have a very clear idea of where I wanted my life to go. So things just kind of happened to me. So when I moved to Dubai, I ended up rolling into media.
Okay.
And I love that career, but it's super fast paced. And I ended up burning out. So I decided to quit. And then I rolled into startup side and worked with startup tech companies on the sales side. And while that was a bit more relaxed, it was still, I don't know, I feel as time went on, I just kept feeling stuck. And one of my key core values is freedom, as I discovered in Dubai.
Okay.
And so I started thinking about, what does freedom mean to me? And the things that I'm doing today, are they really, in service of getting you closer to freedom? And they weren't. I was not doing so well on the people telling me what to do, the big expectations. But later on, I realized that it also means that I get to choose the people I work with. I get to choose the hours I work. I always struggled with the 9 to 5 because I believe not everyone's built the same way. And
we're not. Actually, I don't know if you've checked out the research, but women in specific are not built for the 9 to 5, though here it's 9 to 6. Biologically, our bodies are not built that way. And
exactly.
If you want to construct the perfect work cadence for a woman, it would follow her menstrual cycle. It's built for a man.
Like the whole world is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, there were all these things that I struggled with. And then I ended up, like I say, everything in my life has sort of happened to me. I ended up being made redundant in my last job. I was working for a startup that was selling mobile data.
Okay.
And they got hit badly by the pandemic. So in the pandemic, they made me redundant.
How did you feel during that moment? Were you surprised or not very surprised?
I was surprised, but also I think maybe 2 years before that point, I had already started thinking about. I always say Dubai is like a coat. When you get to Dubai, that coat's really big, and you're growing into that coat, so it fits you nicely. And then I had gotten to a stage where I had gotten too big for the coat. So I was, not feeling happy and comfortable. And I knew something had to change. I didn't really know what. And I thought the answer was to move somewhere else and to maybe take a break, take some time off, travel. But then, as time went on, that decision was made for me basically by being made redundant. And then in a period in time where I didn't have the freedom to travel where I wanted. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, we were in lockdown, so you had to sit with your own thoughts.
Exactly, which wasn't great, but helpful in a way. Initially, I wanted to stay. So I tried to find another job in Dubai, but it didn't really work out. I couldn't really find nothing that really excited me. And then I came to the realization, you know what, maybe this is a good thing. This is meant to happen. Maybe it's time for me to move back and spend some time with my family and figure things out from there. And so I did. I literally, within 2 weeks, packed up everything. 13 years of, carrying stuff around and got on a plane and moved back. And that was it. Chapter Dubai closed.
How do you feel? I mean, I think it's now what, 5 years? 5 years since you've done it. Do you ever have any moments where you wish you would have stayed, or have things just changed so much now that you've been back? I mean, obviously you've taken a completely different path, which I'd like to talk about. So how did that unfold once you returned to the Netherlands? And was it defeating for you to move back, or did you feel genuinely in your heart of hearts that this was the right move and you now have more clarity about how to move forward?
I moved back thinking I was going to only be there for maybe 6 months to a year. A bit naive maybe, but the pandemic took a bit longer, and it took a bit longer for the world to open up. But yeah, I've never in my life looked back thinking I wish I'd done something different. So I think that is my strong point. I always think, things are meant to happen and set you on a different course, or on a path to discover something new. And so I did. When I got back to the Netherlands, I had all this free time because I didn't have a job. I lived with my parents for a year, and so I decided to occupy myself with the free time that I had. I started photography school and did a 2-year course. I guess that was sort of a second chance at going down the creative path. And I loved every second of it. It was really nice for a change, to not work in a high-paced environment, high pressure. It was just me and my creative ideas. And it was just really nice. And I think I also really needed that sort of downtime, that sort of reset. I remember when I got back to the Netherlands, the first maybe 6 months to a year, I was just tired. I slept and spent lots.
It's almost like an energetic detox. Like you had to shed all of the built up energy that was kind of weighing you down from probably being in the wrong field. Because even you had said it earlier that, before you were made redundant, something kind of deep down inside you was feeling a bit off for the past couple of years. And so photography and having that downtime helped you to release all of those feelings. So
I guess you could say because I had up until that point basically lived a life in service of others and like wanting to obviously please others. I had always made choices that weren't innately mine. And so, working, and even it just felt like I always needed to prove something. And I guess that's where maybe the resistance came from in everything that I did. So it was really nice to experience that. I don't know what the right word is, but like I was in flow, I can say, doing the creative things and, not feeling that pressure just because this all came naturally to me. This is who I am in the core.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you said that at a young age, you kind of had this creative calling. And so now as an adult, you were finally getting to fulfill that initial dream. But you did end up returning to the corporate world, I know. So
I did.
Why I mean, how did that happen that you ended up returning back? And
us people always choose the path of least resistance. And it's funny I say that because I felt so much resistance doing the job.
yeah,
But with the job also came status. And I guess sort of I identified myself with, being able to say I'm an account lead, because it said something about who I am, or anyways, that's how it felt. So the paycheck was nice. So weigh all that up against, an uncertain path of creativity, doing your own thing, having no idea where to start or how to build a business from scratch. When a media job crossed my path, I thought, this is perfect for me.
yeah.
Let's go back to
It's
what I know.
So then that familiar identity, because you spent so much of your time as a female leader within the media industry, it's almost like you just like a little bit let that fear or comfort drag you back in, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. To be honest, I've been in this position many times, where I've had something in me where I've wanted to feel called or compelled to do something else, but yet it is that hook because it's a comfort, the stability of the paycheck, that I guess kind of keeps you hooked, right? And being
Absolutely.
able to show a bit of success in a way and show that you have made it. So for sure, it's an easier path. And it's a path that you had already had some achievements. So I could understand that pursuing the photography path and not knowing where to begin or how to build that business could for sure be scary. But now you are building a business. You're a year in. So what happened in this time period from returning to work and now where you are today?
Yeah. I guess some people need to learn their lessons several times in life, and this was one of my lessons. So what happened was the exact same thing that made me quit media in Dubai in the first place. So I ended up burning out again. I remember feeling so overwhelmed, and there were days where I would just leave the office crying because I was exhausted, overworked, and just not happy. So
even though Europe is supposed to be lighter on the work hours, you weren't experiencing, you weren't a part of those statistics we see in the news.
No, and I think part of that is who I am and my desire to please and to having a hard time saying no. So wanting to say yes to everything. So that means taking on more than you can carry. And part of it is really also just the way the industry is. It is fast paced. It is high pressure. It is everything needs to be done yesterday. And so, I just decided after 2 years, I woke up one morning and I thought to myself, how did I end up in that exact same position again?
Oh, wow.
This is not what I want. Where the hell's my freedom? The freedom that's supposedly so important to me. I'm doing everything I can to, not have that in my life. And so I decided to face my fears, because that's what really, it was on the one hand, what got me back into, a paid job.
Right.
So I decided, you know what, there really is, I just felt there is no other option for me than to pursue this path of doing my own thing, to pursue that freedom.
And did you know at that point in time what it was that you wanted to pursue?
No, I think I was probably one of the least prepared business owners setting up my business. I had no idea. I knew I had my photography degree, I had a camera, and I thought, you know what, that's what I'm going to do, and I'll figure it out as I go. So that's how I started out.
And really quickly, I actually just want to dial back to the 2 years where you returned to media. You said something that really stood out to me, that you have it in you to please. This is something that I often hear from women. In fact, a lot of people say that this is a marquee difference between men and women. Do you remember if your male counterparts were the same way? Were they doing the same kind of efforts and going to the ends of the earth like you?
Yeah, well, I've only ever had male bosses, and I can tell you that they were a lot better at just going, you know what, that's not part of my job, or you know what, it's 6 p.m., I'm going home.
So they
I'm not getting
definitely were drawing the boundaries.
Yeah, yeah. And I think part of women wanting to please, but specifically me, was feeling that I wasn't good enough and I had something to prove. So I just wanted to show my worth by doing.
But even though, like, there wasn't a point in time where you thought, okay, I can still show my worth by doing, but maybe imparting some boundaries, I can still be successful doing that. Or just you felt like having the overload maybe showcased that you could do more, you could handle more, you had the strength to do it all.
Yeah, I've always felt that that's how I show worth, but by being strong, by not asking for help and just getting the work done, not complaining.
And these traits now, have they transformed into your new companies? So obviously, you had the 2 years back, you had the same awakening for a second time, and you felt all the same things and you decided to quit, which is really impressive, by the way, because I think, again, a lot of women that I've spoken to, they reach this point where they want to quit, they want to take the leap, but they're too afraid to. And with the first time that you had this pivot in life, the quitting was forced upon you because you were made redundant. How did you take that step? And when you walked in and decided to quit, you really didn't have a plan, as you stated. You weren't sure what you were going to do. So where was this courage coming from?
It wasn't courage. It was just I had no other option. I had to either quit or literally like
you were
break
just
down.
too burnt out.
There was no other option. I just could not carry on the way I was carrying on. So in a way, that's what saved me.
And how did you feel once you quit and you left and you parted ways?
I felt very relieved. I felt very proud of myself for actually, giving up a good job. But I also felt and knew that, all the money in the world couldn't buy me the happiness and the freedom that I was looking for. So that's why I say I felt like I had no other option, because what is a filled bank account if, you're leaving work crying every day and you're not happy and you feel that you have no work-life balance and all you do is work, work, work.
It's so true. And a lot of people think that, oh, if I, get that raise or that promotion or that bonus or make this much more money, that the happiness will follow. And it doesn't.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. The funny thing is, though, it was a process. After I quit, you go through a period of, oh my God, I'm no longer this, whatever, high-flying career person. And also I had no idea how I was going to build a business.
And you didn't know what the business was going to be at that point, right?
I just know I have a camera, I can take photos, and people need photos. There's so many people starting businesses that need photos. So that's what I'm going to do. And so that's, I guess, how I started. But I was so shy to promote myself. I felt such a resistance on, showing up online and proudly speaking about what I was doing. And it's such a competitive market out there. So you're, if you're not visible, people don't know you exist. And if people don't know you exist, there's no business, basically. So I spent, I would say, a good year dealing with that. And it's interesting because everything that I had struggled with in my career, so the not being able to set boundaries, wanting to please, not feeling good enough, imposter syndrome, they all came and hit me all at once. So I had to really, look myself in the mirror and deal with these things, because all of a sudden there wasn't a job or a boss or a whatever to hide behind anymore. I couldn't blame it on anyone but me. So I had to really deal with these issues before I was able to move on. And I guess that is what in the end put me on the path of, because I realized through my conversations with other female entrepreneurs and obviously the women I worked with photographing, that they were facing these same struggles.
The same like inner battlefield of putting themselves out there and doubting, imposter syndrome.
Exactly.
And these were women that had established businesses?
Yeah. So these are all women that started businesses from a passion. So pretty similar paths to mine. Most of them had careers and quit their careers because they also felt that they wanted to make a bigger impact on the world. They wanted to have more work-life balance. They wanted to do something meaningful.
And how did you find these women?
So I joined a few networking clubs.
Okay.
Just initially for me to, because when you're a solopreneur, you don't have colleagues, right? Whereas when you work for a boss or a bigger company, you work in a team, and usually in the team, you can sort of vent about the things that you're experiencing or ask questions or get help or whatever, have a mentor. But when you're on your own, you don't have that. So I thought it was really important to surround myself with women that had chosen similar paths, that were going through the same things. And in doing that, I realized that, and funny enough, I think it's mostly women that experience these struggles of not feeling worthy enough, the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome. So yeah, it really put me on a path of, wanting to understand why that is, but also realizing from my own journey and also seeing that in other women that, starting a business and the way you show up in the world really starts from within yourself and the way you look at yourself and the way you feel about yourself. So yeah, my business then kind of merged from being a photography business to helping women build brands, and more than brands, really building confidence and the belief in themselves that they, are unique, they're good at what they do, and they're worthy of a thriving business.
So the fact that you went through a bit of this journey yourself, it qualifies you to be able to speak to women who are facing the same thing and help them to almost use those, I guess, negative feelings in order to fuel it into establishing a confident business presence or brand identity as the face of their company, correct?
Because I walked the path, I understand them so well. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I can continue living my life wanting to please others, or I can put a stop to it and say, I'm going to live my life for me right now. And anyone that has a problem with it can basically go do one. If you want.
Exactly. I think it's a really empowering place to reach. You made so many decisions based on what other people wanted you to do. It started with college. It actually even started with the decision to go to college. And in this day and age, so many people are choosing to not take that path, or they're struggling with the choice. And so it's basically like you're saying that you took all these years to end up at this point where you feel strong enough to be able to do what you want. And so when it comes to your business, I think it's really interesting how you have taken your passion for photography. You basically learned through being a part of these networking groups a sweet spot of building brands for women. But I want to ask you, why did you choose to only focus on women for your business? And do you think that this decision has limited your growth potential? Have you faced any backlash from this or about this? Because it's interesting when I talk to some men and I actually tell them, for instance, about this podcast and focusing on female empowerment, I get quite a lot of negative replies from the men. And I feel like there's this low key bubbling up of men feeling a little bit frustrated with the whole movement that we've experienced in these past several decades with, female empowerment, putting women in leadership positions, countries and companies striving to have gender balance. And here you say, I don't really care. This is who I am. Stories by M is 100% focused on women. And I think that's really bold to take that decision. So I'm super curious to hear about why did you do this?
The fact that men react the way they do is probably reason enough that we still need to, empower women and give them a platform. 3 reasons, I think, why I decided to work with women. 1, because I am one and I understand them better than anyone, I guess. And because I've walked the path, but also because I think societally, women still have bigger expectations to live up to than men do. And so that puts them in a position of feeling that they have to work harder or feeling that they have to act a certain way or choose certain paths in life. And I see that a lot more in women than I do in men. Men have this innate sort of confidence, I guess, even though it may not always be the case, but men in that way definitely have it easier in life than women do. And that's why I feel so strongly about helping these women not just build a brand. The brand is obviously the foundation of which their business is built in the end, but more than building a brand, I want to really let them feel their worth and give them the confidence to really go out into the world and get their voice heard. Because I think women they struggle with making themselves heard. So yeah, I feel really strongly about that, because when women stand up and make themselves heard or have strong opinions, they're called either difficult or tough bossy, bitchy, and it's crazy. Why should we always have to dim our lights to make others feel comfortable or better? And in this case, men. I think it's crazy. This day and age,
it is completely true, and it is a sad truth that in this day and age we are, differentiated against our male peers. And literally we could say the same thing, but it is so true. The research consistently and continuously says when a woman is decisive or authoritative, or coming with a plan and very clear and articulate about what to do and where to go, the perception is negative. But then when a man shows up in the exact same way, he's applauded for having confidence and being decisive. I still don't quite understand it, though. Because you are focused on women, have you had any feedback from some of the women that you've worked with on how your program has helped them?
The feedback has been mostly positive. I think people can really relate to the story. They think it's really inspiring, to hear my path and then how that path has put me on a path to help women like me. And in the women that I've helped so far, I can really see a massive shift in how, their mindset changes and in the sense that they become more unapologetic. They become more, I don't give two shits about what I want or who gets offended by the things I have to say, because I have to say them. I'm living life for me and not for anyone else.
That must be incredibly rewarding to watch a woman that you work with go through almost the same journey that you went through. And it must be rewarding to know that you had a part of that. So I want to ask you, right now I've met many other women who are also creating businesses that are 100% female focused. And they're in earlier stages than you are. They also seem confident like you in taking this approach in terms of having a business that's only for women. But for other women who are listening that are contemplating whether to pursue a business that's purpose-built for women, what advice would you give them?
Follow your heart. If in your heart, I mean, for the longest time, I followed my head, because my head was telling me things. But as soon as I started following my heart, and it was very strongly telling me to help other women, that's when things started flowing. So stop overthinking and start doing.
You know, it's so funny that you say that, because that was actually my father's continuous piece of advice to me. He always said, Stacy, follow your heart. Anytime I asked him about what to do, decision to make, this is always what he would reply me. So I think that's a really great piece of advice. I think that a lot of people get stuck in differentiating their heart, their calling, that inner emotional pull with the rational side of their brain. And I think that's a really great piece of advice for all the women that are listening today, that if you're feeling in that place, you really should just bite the bullet and listen to your heart. So I think that's a really great place to leave things. I want to ask you a couple of super quick questions before we leave. So obviously the name of the podcast is Supergene Unleashed. So Margot, I would like to know from you, what do you think is your supergene? What's your superpower?
My superpower is being able to see potential in people. So when I start working with women, they tend to be blind to their own, uniqueness. And I instantly see and recognize it, and then help them see it too. So that's my superpower.
That's wonderful. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming to the show today. And thank you, my dear listeners, for tuning in today. I really hope that you feel inspired and encouraged. And if you're currently facing a crossroad and not entirely loving how you spend your time, you've been thinking about pursuing a side hustle, or maybe you've started a side hustle and you aren't so sure what direction to take, I genuinely wish for you to feel encouraged that it's never too late to start. Especially, Margot, you said you're 45 years old. You have just gotten started. There's no stopping you. Can you just quickly tell everybody how they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram under Stories by M, and on LinkedIn as Margot Visser, and my website, storiesbym.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.